For decades, it was a shadow conflict. No official declarations, no formal battlefield, no clear beginning. Just cyber attacks, airstrikes, in the dark assassinations without signatures. Missiles launched through proxies. Iran, Israel, the United States. Three powers locked in a confrontation that rarely makes headlines until it explodes. Each side claims deterrence, each side claims defense, and each escalation is described as necessary. But history shows something dangerous. Wars don't always begin with declarations. They begin with normalization. This is the story of how the Middle East reached the brink. Before 1979, Iran and Israel were not enemies in fact. Under the Shah, Iran quietly cooperated with Israel. That changed with the Iranian Revolution. The new Islamic Republic defined Israel as illegitimate. Support for anti-Israel groups became official policy. Meanwhile, the United States, long allied with Israel, became Iran's primary geopolitical adversary. Three nations, three competing visions for the region. The conflict wasn't an immediate war. It became something more complex, a long-term strategic standoff instead of open battle. The confrontation evolved into indirect warfare. Israel accused Iran of building military infrastructure in Syria. Iran expanded influence through allied groups across Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen. The United States maintained military bases across the region. Airstrikes became routine. Israeli jets targeted Iranian positions in Syria. Iran-backed militias launched rockets toward Israeli territory. U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria were occasionally struck by drones. Each side denied escalation. Each side insisted it was responding, not initiating. This became known as a shadow war. A conflict without official acknowledgement, but shadow wars carry risk because miscalculation becomes easier. At the center of the tension lies one issue: Iran's nuclear program. The United States and its allies argue Iran seeks nuclear weapons capability. Iran insists its program is civilian. In 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the nuclear deal, attempted to limit enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief. In 2018, the U.S. withdrew from the agreement. Sanctions returned, tensions increased. Israel has consistently stated a nuclear-armed Iran is unacceptable. Iran has increased uranium enrichment levels in response to sanctions. This dynamic creates a dangerous equation. If Israel believes Iran is close to weaponization, preemptive strikes become possible. If Iran believes attack is imminent, retaliation plans accelerate. Mutual suspicion narrows the space for diplomacy. Modern conflict rarely stays contained. Iran supports armed groups across the region. Israel conducts operations beyond its borders. The United States maintains carrier groups in strategic waters. This creates multiple flashpoints. Southern Lebanon, the Syrian border, the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf. An attack in one location can trigger reactions elsewhere. Missile defense systems intercept rockets. Drone technology lowers the cost of escalation. Cyber warfare adds another invisible layer. The battlefield is no longer geographic. It's digital, economic, psychological, and constant. The most dangerous wars are not planned. They happen through escalation spirals. One strike intended as deterrence is interpreted as provocation. Retaliation is framed as defense, each move justified internally, but perceived externally as aggression. History shows how quickly this can happen. World War I began with a regional crisis. Leaders believed escalation could be controlled. They were wrong. In the Middle East today, multiple actors operate simultaneously: state militaries, non-state militias, intelligence agencies. Political factions control becomes fragmented, and fragmentation increases risk. For the United States, involvement is strategic. Israel is a long-standing ally. Iran is viewed as a destabilizing regional force. But Washington also seeks to avoid full-scale war. Open conflict would disrupt oil markets, destabilize global trade routes, increase regional refugee crises, draw in other powers. So U.S. strategy often balances deterrence with restraint. Military presence without direct invasion, sanctions without occupation support, without full entanglement. But balance becomes fragile when allies act independently. Several scenarios could tip the region into direct conflict. A direct strike on Iranian soil attributed to Israel an attack, causing high American casualties, clear evidence of nuclear weaponization. A regional ally invoking defense treaties, each of these reduces diplomatic space, and once full-scale war begins between states, containment becomes far more difficult. Unlike proxy skirmishes, direct war involves national militaries, air power, missile systems, naval forces. Escalation becomes exponential. The Middle East has experienced decades of instability. But large-scale state-to-state war between Iran and Israel, with U.S. involvement, would reshape the global order. Energy markets would react immediately. Global alliances would realign. Major powers would be forced to choose positions. The danger isn't just military, it's systemic. Modern wars affect supply chains, inflation, migration, cybersecurity, and global finance, which is why the current tension remains at the brink. Pressure, retaliation, containment. Pause, repeat. Iran, Israel, the United States. Three actors navigating deterrence in a region shaped by history, ideology, and power. For now, the conflict remains below the threshold of declared war. But brinkmanship carries a cost because the longer escalation becomes routine, the more normal it feels. And normalization is often how major wars begin. The question isn't whether tensions exist. The question is whether restraint can outlast retaliation, because history teaches one lesson repeatedly. Wars don't start when leaders want them to, they start when leaders believe they can control them. And sometimes they cannot.